In a scrapyard on the south side of Birmingham, Alabama, a black man in his late 40s stood in front of a condemned Bluebird school bus. The tires had gone flat so long ago that the rubber had cracked and split where it met the asphalt. Four windows on the driver's side were shattered. The emergency exit door at the rear hung open on one hinge, swinging slightly in the warm Alabama wind. The yellow paint had oxidized to a pale, chalky color that looked almost white under the afternoon sun, except where rust had eaten through in long brown streaks along the wheel wells and below the windows. The scrapyard owner wanted $300 for it. The bus had been sitting on the back row of the lot for almost 3 years, wedged between a crushed Ford Taurus and a stack of old washing machines. It was scheduled to be cut apart for steel at the end of the month. Nobody had asked about it. Nobody had walked over to look at it. The man pulled a zippered bank pouch out of the inside pocket of his work jacket. He unzipped it on the hood of the scrapyard owner's truck and counted the bills. 20s, 10s, 5s, a folded stack of ones. $267. Everything he had, saved over 14 months. The scrapyard owner watched him count it, looked at the bus, looked back at the money, and took $250. He told him to keep the rest. He said the bus was his problem now. His name is Raymond Ellis. What he did with that bus over the next 15 months is one of the most quietly impressive feats of survival engineering you will ever see documented. But to understand why that moment in the scrapyard mattered so much, you have to understand where Raymond was standing before he got there. For 2.5 years, Raymond had been sleeping under the Elton B. Stevens Expressway overpass on the south side of Birmingham. He had a canvas duffel bag with 2 changes of clothes inside. He had a heavy wool blanket he kept rolled and strapped to the outside of the bag. He had a small plastic toolbox with a set of screwdrivers, a pair of pliers, a utility knife, and a voltage tester, and he had a photograph of his daughter's 3rd birthday party, laminated at a Kinko's years earlier, tucked inside the front pocket of the duffel where he could reach it without looking. Raymond had not always been homeless. For 22 years, he had worked as an HVAC technician across central Alabama. He installed air conditioning in new builds, repaired furnaces in office buildings, and ran ductwork through crawl spaces in July heat that would send most people to the hospital. He understood AIR flow, insulation values, heat transfer, and condensation the way a mechanic understands engines. His hands knew copper tubing and sheet metal the way a carpenter's hands know wood. The company he worked for, a family-owned outfit that had been operating since the 1980s, closed its doors in 2019 when the owner retired and none of his children wanted the business. Raymond found other work for a while, picking up jobs with smaller contractors. But the jobs were inconsistent. Some weeks he worked 5 days. Some weeks he stood outside a supply house parking lot, hoping someone needed a hand. Then came the divorce. Then came the apartment he could no longer afford on irregular pay. Then came the eviction notice taped to the door on a Tuesday morning while he was out looking for work. His daughter lived with her mother in Huntsville. He talked to her on the phone when he could charge it at a gas station. He never told her he was sleeping under a highway. The shelters in Birmingham had the same problems shelters have everywhere. Curfews that started before evening shift work ended, nowhere to store tools, and zero privacy. One shelter required residents to leave by 7 in the morning, regardless of weather, which meant carrying everything through the streets until 5 in the afternoon. Raymond tried it for 2 weeks. Someone stole his voltage tester on the 3rd night. After that, he chose the overpass. Nobody had built a system for what happens when the official answers run out. So Raymond built his own. Every morning at 5:30, Raymond walked to a day labor corner near the industrial district south of downtown. Contractors would pull up looking for men who could work a full day. Raymond almost always got picked. He was quiet, skilled, and never complained. On the days he worked, he saved every dollar he could. He kept the money in the zippered bank pouch inside his jacket, pinned to the lining with a safety pin so it could not fall out or be taken while he slept. He never told anyone what he was saving for. For a long time, he was not sure himself. He just knew that stopping felt like giving up, and giving up was not something he was willing to do. That bank pouch is what he counted out on the hood of the scrapyard owner's truck. The first night Raymond slept on the bus, he did not have a working door. The main folding door was jammed open and the emergency exit still swung on its broken hinge. He did not have power. He did not have water. He laid his wool blanket on the bare metal floor between the rusted wheel wells and stared up at the ceiling where a bird had built a nest in the vent housing above the driver's seat. Mosquitoes came through the broken windows all night, but Raymond made a decision that night. He was not going to be a man who slept on the floor of a broken school bus. He was going to turn this bus into a home, and he was going to make it invisible. That second part is what separates Raymond's story from every other vehicle conversion you have ever seen. Raymond did not want anyone to know he lived in the bus. Not the city, not the police, not the lot owners, not the people walking past it on the sidewalk. His goal from the very first day was to build a home that nobody would ever look at twice. The first month was demolition. Raymond pulled out every seat, working with a socket wrench he borrowed from a man at the day labor corner. The seat frames were bolted to steel rails welded to the floor, and removing them took nearly 3 weeks of evening work after full days on job sites. He sold the scrap metal from the seat frames for $78, which became his first material budget. He swept out years of leaves, bird droppings, and shattered glass. He scrubbed the interior floor with bleach and water until the metal underneath was clean enough to work on. The second month was the exterior. This is where Raymond's plan became clear. He went to an auto paint supplier near the Bessemer Highway and bought 2 gallons of flat, white industrial paint for $22. He painted the entire bus a plain, unremarkable white. Then, using a piece of cardboard as a stencil, he painted the words Allied Mechanical Services on both sides in dark blue lettering. He added a fake phone number and the words heating and cooling underneath. From 20 feet away, the bus looked exactly like a service vehicle belonging to a small HVAC company, the kind of vehicle you see parked behind strip malls and in industrial lots, and never think about for a single second. He replaced the broken windows with tinted glass panels he pulled from 2 scrapped minivans at the same yard where he bought the bus. The scrapyard owner charged him $5 per panel. He sealed them with silicone caulk he got from a construction dumpster. From the outside, the windows looked like dark utility panels. You could not see inside. The third month was insulation. And this is where Raymond's 22 years of HVAC work changed everything. An amateur would have stapled fiberglass bats to the walls and called it done. Raymond knew better. He knew that a school bus is essentially a single-layer steel shell with 0 thermal break, which means in summer the interior becomes an oven, and in winter it becomes a refrigerator. Insulating the walls alone does almost nothing because the floor and ceiling conduct just as aggressively. Raymond got his insulation the same way he got everything else. He helped a contractor tear out a commercial HVAC system in a warehouse being demolished near the airport. In exchange, he took home rolls of foil-faced rigid foam board that would have cost $400 at a supply house. He insulated the bus from floor to ceiling, cutting each piece to fit precisely between the structural ribs of the bus frame. He sealed every joint with aluminum tape, creating a continuous vapor barrier that kept moisture from condensing on the cold metal walls behind the insulation. He covered the insulation with plywood paneling he sourced from a demolished house in Inslee, sanded smooth and stained with leftover deck stain from a job site. By the end of the third month, the inside of the bus looked nothing like a bus. It looked like a small cabin. The walls were smooth wood. The floor was insulated and covered with salvaged vinyl plank flooring he pulled from a dumpster behind a flooring showroom. The ceiling was clean white foam board between exposed steel ribs that Raymond had sanded and painted black so they looked like decorative beams. Month 4 was ventilation, and Raymond designed something that would impress a licensed mechanical engineer. He knew from 2 decades of field work that a sealed, insulated space without proper air exchange becomes dangerous. Carbon dioxide builds up, moisture collects, mold grows. So he built a cross-ventilation system using salvaged aluminum ductwork from the same warehouse demolition. He installed intake vents near the floor on one side and exhaust vents near the ceiling on the opposite side, creating a convective loop that pulled fresh air in at the bottom and pushed stale air out at the top. He fitted each vent with a small 12-volt computer fan powered by a car battery, drawing less than half an amp each, barely enough to notice on a battery charge, but enough to keep the air moving constantly. He covered the exterior vents with the same flat white paint as the rest of the bus, so they disappeared completely. Everything I just showed you, the HVAC-grade insulation on a scrapyard bus, the convective ventilation, the stealth paint job that turned a school bus into a service vehicle. That is one man's build in one city, but the methods underneath, the cold survival systems, the stealth protocols, the way you manage food and power and clarity when everything official has already failed you, those work everywhere. I spent over a year documenting all of them, and they became a 65-page field manual called The Veteran's Blueprint. Link is in the description. But stay with me, because what happens after the bus is finished is the part that matters most. Month 5 was water. Raymond had been hauling jugs from a gas station on Bessemer Road, sometimes carrying 10 gallons a day on foot. He mounted a pair of 30-gallon food-grade drums, sourced from a restaurant that was throwing them out, in the rear of the bus behind a partition wall. He built a rainwater collection system along the roof using PVC guttering, but he disguised it to look like a standard roof rack with equipment mounts. From the street, it looked like a service vehicle carrying tools on top. Nobody would ever guess it was collecting water. For filtration, he built a gravity-fed system using a 5-gallon bucket with layers of gravel, activated charcoal from a pet store, and fine sand. He treated the stored water with 2 drops of bleach per gallon. For hot water, he found a small propane tankless heater at an estate sale for $30 and installed it in a ventilated compartment near the rear door. He plumbed it into a compact shower stall he built from PVC pipe and a vinyl curtain. The day Raymond took his first hot shower inside that bus, he stood it under the water for more than 30 minutes. He had not had a private hot shower in over 2 years. He said later that he forgot what it felt like to stand under hot water without watching the clock, without someone knocking on the door, without worrying that someone was going through his bag on the other side of a shelter wall. He said that was the day the bus stopped being a project and started being his home. Power came in the 6th month. Raymond traded 2 weekends of labor with a solar installation crew in Hoover, helping them mount panels on residential rooftops. The crew foreman gave him 2 slightly damaged panels with cracked frames but fully functional cells. Raymond mounted them flat on the roof of the bus, angled just enough to catch sunlight, but low enough to look like part of the vehicle's roof equipment. He wired them to a charge controller and 2 deep cycle marine batteries he bought, used for $40 each. A retired electrician from his church, a man named Mr. Gaines, came out one Saturday and helped him wire the entire bus, including lights, outlets, a small refrigerator, and a fan. Mr. Gaines would not take $1. He came back the following Saturday with a bag of electrical tape and a thermos of sweet tea. He told Raymond the wiring was cleaner than half the houses he had inspected during his career. By the 8th month, Raymond had a kitchen. A 2-burner propane stove sat on a countertop he built from a solid wood door he salvaged from a renovated church on 4th Avenue North. He sanded it, sealed it with polyurethane, and mounted it on a frame of 2x4s. He found a stainless steel bar sink at a Habitat for Humanity restore for $12 and plumbed it into his water system with a hand pump. He had a shelf with coffee, rice, canned beans, hot sauce, and a small jar of cinnamon his daughter had mailed him after he finally told her he had a place of his own. He did not tell her it was a bus. By month 10, Raymond had a real bedroom in the back of the bus. A full-size mattress donated by someone from his church was still wrapped in plastic. A reading lamp wired to the solar system. A small shelf with a Bible, a mechanic's handbook, and 3 paperback novels. His daughter's birthday photograph, framed now, hung on the wooden wall above his pillow. A sliding barn door he built from reclaimed fence pickets separated the bedroom from the rest of the bus. A wool rug on the floor. At night, with the lamp on and the door closed, the space glowed warm and quiet like a small room in a real house. The stealth system was the thing that made all of it work. Raymond had developed a parking rotation he followed without exception. He never parked in the same spot more than 3 consecutive nights. He kept a mental list of 11 locations across Birmingham's industrial south side, where a white utility vehicle could sit for days without a single person questioning it. Behind warehouse loading docks, in the gravel lots of closed machine shops, along the fence lines of equipment rental yards. He arrived after dark. He left before 6 in the morning. He never cooked during parking hours because food smell carries. He never let light show through the windows at night. He kept the exterior spotless because a dirty vehicle attracts attention and a clean one does not. One evening, a Birmingham police officer parked his cruiser directly behind Raymond's bus in a warehouse lot and sat there for 15 minutes running the plate. Raymond sat inside in complete silence, 8 feet away from the officer, separated by an insulated wall and a tinted window. The officer drove away. He never came back. Raymond said later that his heart did not even speed up. He had rehearsed that moment in his head 100 times. By month 13, the bus was finished. From the outside, it was an unremarkable white utility vehicle that no one would remember seeing. From the inside, it was a 250-square-foot home with insulated walls, a ventilation system, running water, hot showers, solar electricity, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a front door that locked from the inside. Then the community started showing up. A retired plumber from his church installed a drain system so the water emptied into a gray tank instead of pooling on the ground. A woman from a food pantry brought him a slow cooker and towels. A welder near the airport reinforced the bus frame at no charge. He told Raymond he had been homeless himself in the 1990s and wished someone had helped him the way he could help now. A local reporter heard about Raymond through his church. She came out expecting a short interview and stayed for 3 hours. The story ran in a Birmingham paper on a Thursday. By Sunday, Raymond had received messages from people in 14 states. 3 other homeless men in Birmingham reached out and asked if he could teach them. Raymond said yes. He started spending his Saturday mornings at the scrapyard, walking them through insulation values, water systems, and how to make a vehicle look like something nobody would ever notice. He brought coffee. He brought his toolbox. He never charged a penny. 2 of those 3 men are now living in their own converted vehicles. One of them, a 38-year-old Army veteran named Darren, built his inside a cargo van he bought for $175. Raymond helped him wire the solar system himself. Raymond still lives in his bus. He parks it legally now on a small lot he leases from a Birmingham property owner for $75 a month. He has a mailing address through his church. He has electricity. He has hot water. He has a kitchen where he makes cornbread in a cast iron skillet every Sunday evening. He has a front door that locks and a doormat outside that says welcome. He has a small shelf near the driver's seat where he keeps a potted basil plant in the morning sun. Someone asked him recently if he ever thinks about the man who used to sleep under the expressway overpass, the man with the canvas duffel bag and the laminated photograph pinned inside the front pocket. Raymond said he thinks about him every single day. He said that man was not weaker than him. He said that man had the same hands, the same training, the same heart. The only thing that man was missing was a chance, a $250 chance. Raymond says the bus did not save him. He saved himself. But the bus that condemned, rust-streaked, flat-tired, scheduled to be scrapped Bluebird school bus gave him somewhere to start. And sometimes somewhere to start is everything. If you are the kind of person who believes that the people this country asks the most of deserve better than a wait list and a curfew, you already know what to do next. Next week, I am telling the story of a woman in Charlotte who built a tiny house for $250 entirely from materials that rich homeowners dumped on a vacant lot. The building method she used is something most contractors would never think of. Subscribe so you do not miss that one. The video on screen right now goes deeper into a completely different build. Click it and keep going.